Hi, I'm Julie Hiert.
I'm Kate Foggo, regardless of where I am on the screen.
And we are playing with where cameras are and where we should look. I like to look at you, and then I can look at
I like to look at myself. I don't know, it's an obsession now. Do you know what? I think it's because for years and years and years, I just haven't, I just don't really look in the mirror that much because, well, obviously it shows. And we even went on a holiday. God, those were the days, eh? Went on a holiday it was somewhere in Scandinavia, a tiny, lovely place, but tiny little room, tiny little bathroom, big just mirror above the sink. And I was like, fucking hell. But I didn't even know I'd gone grey, like, because we'd been moving house and we hadn't put a mirror up and I hadn't, and I'm not sensitive about it or anything, but I had literally never ever seen my grey hair. And I was like, when did this happen? So clearly I don't spend enough time looking in the mirror, but I find it really hard not to look at myself.
Yeah, I do too, in Zoom and all that, just to see, like, before, like, am I okay? Okay, good. Then, but no, I know. And then it's like, oh, look at that. Why did your face move? Oh, look, your neck. I'm supposed to be accepting of my neck. And we were just talking before we started this about teeth. And you were talking, I know, us Americans and our perfect teeth. I will have you know. See, and then my smile's crooked. I don't care. But I mean, do I? No, I don't really care because there's nothing I can do about it. But my teeth are not, even though I had braces when I was a kid, my mom back in the 60s, they were having women take some type of prenatal vitamin and it like stained all the kids' teeth. So I have all these things on my teeth. You wouldn't know, huh?
Was it fluoride? Because my sister's teeth were stained by fluoride because they put it in the water.
Oh yeah, no,
it's toxic poison.
I know, it's lovely.
I had braces. I had years of braces. Thank you very much, bastards.
Yeah,
that's my bugbears. I'd have a go at them if I could.
Oh, the dentist that I had in Anchorage. There's a whole story there too. I used to come out of the dentist chair and go, oh, Botox much? Because she would be so frozen, like her face when she would talk with me, any hoozle. But she was trying to get me to do all this cosmetic stuff on my teeth. And I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. And I have my lovely yoga teacher. She always tells me to accept my neck because I'm like, we should do face yoga where you do like this stuff so you strengthen these muscles. And she's like, Julie, yoga is about acceptance. Accept your neck. I'm like, I love her.
I do think that the whitening to a certain degree, I just think once you notice it, it's really hard not to see it in other people. That's the thing. And now it's so easy. Like I think crooked teeth are fine. Yeah. I don't like really even teeth. I just don't think they look right at all.
No.
Do you know what's interesting? My beloved RuPaul's Drag Race. So I've started watching the US series. So I think then about
wait. There's a UK and a US series. There's 2 series to this?
13 seasons of the American one.
I have to start watching this per a previous conversation with Kate and myself about extreme self-care. I need to
I just love it. And I loved the British one, probably just because it's closer to home for me. And also I suppose because any sort of drag I've seen or dramatization like that has always been American, to actually see it in an English accent was quite strange for me. And then I started watching the American one, and it's funny because I'm on it's 2010, I think, and it's the 4th series. And you can, as the series go by, not only has it gone from just been the honour of being like the winner of it, now there's like £100,000 prize in 2010. But also this year, especially cosmetic surgery. Like, it's incredible. So that it'd be really interesting to see. It must be just getting more and more prolific. Like last season I watched, there was maybe one or two out of the 21. No, there's 14 of them, I think, that do it, that perhaps had a slight nose job or something, or maybe had their teeth done. But now it's really obvious that I would say 5 or 6 of them have had nose jobs and or some sort of face shaping. It just shows how times change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That is not a judgment on what, on what they choose to do at all. It's just
True.
It's funny though, because there is a sort of, not defensiveness, I don't know what it is. It's something comes out. There is a slight judgment that comes out, sort of like, oh, well, the other girls are more valid because they haven't had stuff done.
Yeah.
I don't know what that feeling is. What is that? It's judgment, isn't it?
Yeah. I think
That
so.
somehow your original beauty is more valuable than, why do we think that? Because we do think that. I do think that. I must admit, if I see people who are surgically enhanced, there's a slight contempt, and yet it's as ridiculous as, this is my land, I was born here, the rest of you can fuck off. It's it's just as full of that much nonsense, isn't it? Really,
it is. Really, yeah, you're right, because we should do whatever we want to do, whatever makes us happy, right? And then who gives a
and
shit?
if you have a haircut that costs $600, I'm not going to, well, actually I might judge you on that, to be fair. But like, what's the difference? Do you know what I mean? What's the difference between someone who chooses to like wear makeup and someone who chooses to wear color contact lenses and someone who gets their nose done?
Right.
Why is that any more or less valid? Why is being born beautiful, more valid than making the best of what you are? I don't know. Interesting. You see, you've got to watch it, Julie. There's so much in there.
I know. Because I still, so I was listening to Abraham Hicks this morning, just before we talked, and there was a woman that spoke up about her nephew who's young and is transgender, and she's just so worried about how the world is going to judge him and take, all the battles he's going to have to face. And Abraham said, well, the world just has to catch up to him.
Brilliant.
I mean, there were lots of things she said, but that was the one thing. The world, look at him just standing in his own light and being who he is, and he's so sure of who he is. Let the world catch up to him. And I'm like, well, yes. And then when I think too about not, the illusion, none of this is really real. And then, but when we're, people trying to transform into a specific definition and look that isn't ultimately really real, and then we shouldn't even judge regardless. And it's so complex and so complicated. Just be happy. You're right.
Yeah. I remember talking to a guy at work, and his children would have been late, I don't know, very, very, no, just about 10, 11, or maybe early teens. And he said they have absolutely no issue with gender at all. They just don't even think about it since the age of the social media and stuff like this. And this is in Dunfermline, which is not what I would consider a hugely cosmopolitan city. I don't imagine there's many strip joints or, drag race or anything like that. I don't know. Or maybe there's a secret nightlife in Dunfermline, but these are sort of, it's a little city, but I would say, I won't say provincial. I don't know if that's insulting, is it? But you know what I mean? It's not. And that he says his kids have absolutely, it just doesn't even come up for them, a discussion about sexuality. They're so accepting. And I thought we did that. We paved the way for that. It is, because it's the previous generation really that bring that up. But and that's actually something that I'm being confronted, if you like, by a lot of things, as they show themselves to me. And one of them is about, as I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race, there is a bit of me again that I didn't really, probably because I didn't really understand, all this issue about gender and people saying they don't want to be defined by their gender, etc. And there's a bit of you that goes, oh, for heaven's sake, just fucking get on with it. And then I watched, I don't know now if it's a UK one, but hearing them talk about the drag, so a lot of them are gay, not all of them are gay, but most of them are gay. Most of them live as men, they just dress up as women. Some of them, I think, either go on or want to, or go on to be transgender. Is that trans? Anyway, some of them, but a lot of them are just men, gay men who dress as women, and they don't necessarily identify with being a woman at all. But they were sort of talking about them growing up. So they're probably in their 20s, 30s at that time. So that's 10 years ago now. And the stories that they had, I suddenly thought, oh my God, that's why it's important, you know, because you sort of think, what difference does it make? You know, does it really matter if you call yourself he or she or whatever? You know, I think it's something that gets bad press, because I don't see a lot of it, but every now and then you'll read something, you think, oh God, does it really matter? And then you look at that and you think, actually, it does matter. It does matter, because there are people who don't fit that gender or that stereotype or whatever. And as long as they're called out for being different because they don't have a category to be put into, you know, and it is, and it was really hit home to me that even though I like to think I'm really accepting, you don't realize that in every issue or every category or every scenario in life, there is scope for people that fall outside the norm, and they suffer for it. And it's important that people make a stand and say, well, actually, I am one of these, because then everybody else can go, oh, thank God, right, not just me then.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a learning thing for me, because you think you know everything and then you realize you know fuck all.
It's so true. Like this, for me, all of what you said is yes. And then here in the States last May, all of the Black Lives Matter movement came back to the forefront when George Floyd was killed. And it's and all the shootings that there's the police shootings and there's mass shootings, there are also shootings, but because I didn't mean to negate what I just said. However, what I'm trying to say, because I can't talk right now for some reason, but the thing with what is normal, like when the George Floyd thing happened and Black Lives Matter came back really to at least my forefront, I started reading as much as I could about racism, and I read this great book called Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, as well as Stamped from the Beginning, A History of Racist Ideas from Ibram Kendi. And when I read these, and you can see how normal was defined by a group of people, and when that happens, it leaves out all of the other people. And for me too, as I explore like storytelling and writing and stuff, it leaves out all these other stories that would, looking backwards, of course, hindsight 2020, would have made the humanity story so much more vibrant and rich, just from a story perspective. I mean, there's all this trauma, there's all this pain, and that too, I guess, will make the stories even more vibrant going forward. But just the idea that this was normal, defined by a small group of people who somehow ruled the world at the time, and so it stayed entrenched for, just from racism, from 1600 onward, if not beforehand, clearly too. And it just affects everything. And yet it's so, like, now that we hopefully know a little bit more or a little bit better in this country, there's this idea of taking down the statues to people who promoted slavery or kept people enslaved. And so when people want to take those statues down, there's some people are saying, well, you're taking down history. Well, yeah, but let's talk about the full history, and not just the fact that they were there and did.
See, that's an interesting
Yeah.
point, because
Yeah.
I haven't followed it at all, but I know that like Gary brought it up, because I think they were doing something, they were taking down some guy in Glasgow. I don't know if he was not a humanitarian, that's not the right word, people who give money, philanthropist,
Oh, yeah.
whatever, I don't know what they're called. And he was I don't know if he was racist, or anyways, in some way he had been associated with what is now deemed an unsavory past, and they wanted to take his statue down. And I must admit, I don't know where I stand on that. You know, if you're saying, yeah, what about the rest of the history, then maybe they should put another statue up beside him, someone else. But if that is normal at that time, and that is what society believed, and let's face it, they don't know any better. Now it's possible, well, they don't know any better, because if you knew any better you wouldn't do it, right?
Right.
Assuming these people aren't just megalomaniacs, which they might have been as well, I suppose there's that. You know, if they don't know any better, can you really judge them as evil people now just because they supported a regime?
Yeah.
So that's the Nazis.
No, well, Well, it's okay. So we'll put the Nazis over here for just a second. So like in the guy that they probably took down in Scotland or England, was it Scotland? Philanthropist guy?
Or I think it was something in Glasgow. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I can't really remember, but it was someone who was. I mean, he wasn't known as a cruel slave master or anything like that, but it turned out that he had supported blah blah blah. I can't remember the story, Julie, but
Yeah.
it didn't. And again, don't really watch news. I'm not talking about somebody who exercised extreme and violent aggression towards people of color or anything like that. It just, just let's assume it's somebody. See, I don't know. I draw the line at somebody who was like a slave trader, for example, because regardless of what was considered normal, you are actually witnessing and being a part of cruelty that I don't care, even if you don't think black people are equal or blah blah blah. You don't treat anyone like that. That I would draw the line at that.
Yeah.
There's a difference between someone who exhibits extreme cruelty towards children, animals, people, anything like that. But if you are just of the opinion that perhaps black people and white people shouldn't mix or whatever, and that's what everybody else thought, does that make you evil? I don't know.
I don't
Does
know.
it?
Yeah, to me I think some of the things that are interesting that are happening are they'll take a statue like that one and not necessarily tear it down, depends, but in some cases they won't tear it down, but they'll update the information that's displayed along with the statue. So instead
I
of
think that's
saying,
fair enough.
yeah, then they'll put him in a broader context so that it's like at that time, yes, he gave a lot of money, however he also did this. And I don't know, and I think telling that broader story is absolutely important, but then also including other stories. Like, for example, I know my history books really romanticize the idea of America's role in World War II, when there was a lot of stuff leading up to World War II that we didn't really learn about until I just watched this show called Atlantic Crossing that was about FDR and the Princess of Norway, because she fled to the US, and how she fought with him or worked with him for 3 or 4 years to get him to be in the war. But it wasn't until we got bombed that then we got in there. But it was all the additional stories around it and how many lives we could have saved. But we don't talk about that. We talk about we went in and we saved the day. Well, that's not necessarily the full entire case. There's all these other parties and all these other stories, and that's is what's so interesting too. But yeah, and yeah, Hitler's a
We actually watched I can't remember what it's called now, but it was about a guy in oh god, I'm shit at all of this, memory just stuff. But he was in the Klan, and they were they was in the South of 68, so they were still segregated. There had been some mixing, but the schools were still segregated, and the black people's school burnt down, and they were going to have to move into the white people's school, and all, and it was all a kerfuffle about that. And they actually brought in this, I want to say negotiator, I think he had a different name, but it was a black guy from obviously up north who had been through this to try and get the community. So they actually mandated that the community had to come to a decision together about what would happen. And it was really good, because in the end, the guy who the guy who's in the KKK, he ended up being best friends with the black lady who was equally against him. It wasn't all one-sided. There was just as much distrust and on both sides, but they ended up being best friends and actually spent the rest of their lives touring to talk to people about just stuff like that. And then you think, there are, that's so heartwarming, but also it showed that not everyone there are people that get involved or go along with stuff because they just don't know any better. Then they are shown something different. And I think most people have the capacity at that point to say, oh, okay, I no longer believe this. Now, it may take them a while to extract themselves, because at the end of the day, every human wants to belong. And like this guy had to forsake his entire life, with the Ku Klux Klan, and he said I think the reason that he joined it at the time was because he was a man who was really struggling to support his wife and child. You know, he had his own issues, and this was the first time he had ever belonged to anything. You know, so I just think it's all a lot more complex, and that actually I think at the heart, they really do believe that at the heart, most people, if they are given the opportunity to see stuff for themselves, most people will make the right decision. I like to think that anyway. And if they don't, it's not necessarily because they're evil. It will be because they're scared, or because they feel threatened, or because they, you know, we're all just trying to get along one way or the other. And that does not mean that I in any way, shape, or form support. Do you know what? When I was 16, 17, so I knew, I don't know how I knew them. I think I was a boyfriend briefly who was friends with the people who lived across the road from us, and they were living in pretty much a squat, I suppose. But there was a guy there, really well spoken. I was really impressed with him. Got to know him quite well, and he was National Front, right? I don't really know what that meant. Do you know what that means?
Kind of.
They're far right, white supremacists, essentially.
Oh yeah, then I thought they were I'll say radical, but yeah.
So here's Kate, UCND, socialist, and he talked to me about it, and everything he said, I couldn't argue with. You know, that's what I'm saying. There's because he'd sort of say white people and black people are different, and we're not saying that black people are bad, we're just saying that we should acknowledge that people are different. And I'm like, fair enough. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can see how people go along with it. And I also apparently voted for the UKIP once, to tell you that, because I don't watch the news or anything. And I was trying to find out information about what the different parties stand for, and it's actually really hard to find out. Just give me a summary of who you are and what you believe in. Like in the olden days, we had Labour, they were red, they believed in nuclear disarmament, they didn't believe in this, they believed in socialism and their welfare state. Here are the blue people, bunch of cunts, you know, that sort of thing. It was quite straightforward.
No judgment in there whatsoever.
And all I got was literally, I think 2 leaflets came through the door, and this one said UK, it was UK independence, party no objection to that. Don't think I clicked what independence meant, right? Everything they said perfectly reasonable. And I thought, you know what, they're the only people who bothered to put a fucking leaflet through my door, I'll vote for them. And then my friend found out, and he said, do you realise you voted to the racist wing of the Conservative Party? Let's not tell anyone that then.
Oh yes, marketing is a lovely thing when it's yeah. And we could go down the whole path of the value of true journalistic integrity and all of that, and why that's so important, because how you need help to decipher everything because of some degree, because of marketing. A marketer myself, but yeah.
But you know, a lot of what they said is absolutely true. What you don't see is in what context they're going to apply it. Right. Yeah. So Julie, I have 100. I meant to get our list out. I have 100 things to talk about. We've already covered. Already got. Other thing that's come up like suddenly again, I just think would be brilliant at it, and I haven't decided which way round yet. But we need to do channeling, because I've got so many questions, Julie.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
So, yeah. And you know, instinctively, I want to say you should do the channeling, because you obviously have a much clearer connection with your guides, and I have lots and lots of questions. But equally,
yeah.
But the other thing is, you know, I sort of thought, do we need to know more about it? Should I read up on how Jess Lively does it? And then I think, no, we could just fucking wing it and just do it ourselves. Yeah. Fine.
Yeah, let's just play. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was something about animals I wanted to ask, and I was just thinking, well, you know, we just need to ask. Like we could, yeah,
Yeah.
We can ask your guides, and they can, or they can bring someone else forward, or we can ask, we can, anyway. So that's the other thing. I can't think what exciting things I was going to ask, but I had a theme this week that I was going to write about, and that is, I'm very proud of this. Your pain is none of my business, right? So what I was trying to do, don't know if you read that thing about empaths that Jodie put on Facebook. It's been a few weeks now.
Oh, I didn't see it. It must have been while I was traveling.
It's worth. I'll find it because I'm going to find it. I'll hashtag you in tag you, whatever that
You
Facebook.
just tag me, yeah.
Because it actually really resonated with me, and I was thinking about that a lot, and I thought, this is my new thing, is I'm going to really try not to get, like, to trust the world to take care of itself. I'm talking really animals here, because I am still quite high alert about, especially in lambing, if I hear a lamb, I'm like, oh, what if it's lost its mother, what, and I get myself all, so I really try to ignore it. And then I was going, right, I'm not going to get, saying, if an animal needs my help, it will show itself to me. I don't need to just assume that every animal out there needs my help, right? Because they've told me repeatedly to mind my own business, in the nicest possible way, but it's not my job. So yesterday, lambs, again, I could hear this lamb, and every now and then I go out and think, okay, so it's coming from over there. I know Robin's over there. He's with the lambs, or mothers are over there. There's, and I have seen a couple of lambs have got out, and we've managed to either tell Yvonne or tell Robin or whatever. But this little lamb, I could still hear it, and I was sort of only half, because the other side of the house, sort of half ignoring it. And then I came down here, and then I went outside because there's people coming in the shed yesterday, and there's a wee lamb out there, bless him, had gone under the gate. So he's on the other side of the gate to his mother. So he's perfectly safe, but he can't get back to his mother. And I'm like, I've been walking around all day going, it's none of your business, Kate. It's none of
And if they need my help, they'll come to me.
I managed to open the gate, and of course mother came out of nowhere, and she's all like bristling, and I managed to open the gate and sort of, bless him, and he's throwing it. He's like Sally. Like, if Sally comes across a fence, when I first put the chicken fencing up, which is just nylon, she just throws herself at it. Like, she does everything by brute force. She doesn't try and get around things. She just threw herself. And this lamb was just throwing itself at the gate, trying to. So I'm like, oh, like, just anyway. So there we go. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, Julie.
I love it. So you rescued the lamb.
Yes, I did. And they both like huffed and just like ran off. And I was like, oh, you're not even going to turn around and look back. She did once. Had gone about like half a mile down the road. She sort of looked back slightly. But yeah, so you can't, I don't know if that's a message that I can't shut myself off completely, or I take that as a reminder that when it's important, it will be right here.
Yeah.
I don't have to go looking for it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think, like, yes, if animals need you or are trying to tell you something, they will come forward. So yes.
But it's interesting that I know it's part of being a sensitive person, I think, because I've spoken to my sister about this, and I remember even she said, that's a bit weird. And reading the Jodie thing made me realize, it's like, I read so much into anything an animal does. Now, is that because I am more sensitive, or is it just an overactive imagination? Like, I know when Sally's relaxed and when she's not, and if she's not relaxed, I worry about what's wrong with her. Where Stella will go, she's just sitting there, and I think, well, no, I don't. I know she's not relaxed. I know she's not. I can feel that. So that's what the article that Jodie said was really good, because it's when you realise that other people don't. That it is actually exhausting to feel everything around you all the time.
Yeah, it is. I think, and I'll read Jodie's article, so we should do that, and then we can talk about it more. I am, alongside all of this, last week I also finished watching my women finding their voice workshop that Elizabeth Lesser and two other wonderful women did through the Omega Institute. And I just feel like if the animals are coming forward, or like when I think there's something up with Lukas, I can just say, I feel like something's upset, and usually it's because of me. I'm not relaxing, or I'm not taking care of myself. So I feel like it's just, we have the ability to have another tool that then allows for us to tell another story or to craft our story even better or stronger or share our voice. So it all comes together. I don't think.
Explain that.
So if I were just to sit here by myself in my RV, it would be, I would totally get in my head and I would be boring probably, but I would also probably create things in my head that weren't true, where I feel like the ability to connect with animals and to connect with nature helps keep me on a, not so much like on a path, but it helps me relate to the world, or it helps me go, oh, wait a minute, like I just heard sandhill cranes fly over. Sandhill cranes mean something. Or the other day we were driving around the Upper Peninsula and a moose walked out in front of our car. And I know, as you know, that since the move and whatnot, I've been completely ungrounded. Well, moose to me mean stay, like, okay, find your power, stand in it, kind of a thing. And so I'm like, duly noted. I mean, it gives me a pause, or it gives me and I can Google what an animal means if I see one more than often or more than once. And it just gives
So
us
actually,
tools.
it is absolutely they're forcing you to be mindful.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's such an overused term, but that is actually what it means, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it for you to stop and interact with the world instead of.
Yeah. Show that I'm connected to everything and everything's connected to me. And then when you see that and how powerful you can be, or how vocal you can be, or what you can begin to talk, I mean, it starts to really unfold. So yeah, if you feel like Sally's doing something, you should. That's a good thing. You just shows your.
Well, I don't know, because then I worry that she's not relaxed enough, and then I don't know what's wrong with her, and maybe it's none of my business.
Well, do you ask her?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to ask our own animals, I think, but I'm learning just to get like a sense, like, oh, like right now, when I have mornings like this where I can just hang out and do my stuff like with you or my meditation, Lucas sleeps out like a light. If I'm doing things that I don't want to do, then he's a bit all over the place, chasing bunnies and stuff.
That's oh big news.
Yeah.
Sally is not bothering me in the mornings.
Huh.
So she's a bit, but like really so different. Like she'll get up and she'll sit on my face and then she'll just go back to sleep. Like there's no pushing and shoving. She'll go and push and shove at Gary, but that's all right.
Oh my gosh.
I know, but then, so maybe you can answer this. Like Danielle says that once an animal's taught you your lesson, that they'll die. But I assume that there could be more than one lesson.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, just from me and Lucas' perspective, well, a couple things. To me and Lucas' perspective, first of all, he broke my leg. And so then there was all that stuff. And now there's just ongoing depths to the lessons. And then because there's like lessons within the lessons. And then even when I think of my dog India that passed several years ago, and she and Bono, my other dog, helped find Lucas. And they're all working together. But India has been around me this whole last week. Like I had a conversation with our colleague, Karen Dundee Smith. And the first thing she said to me when we got on Zoom was, so what's the animal spirit around you? And I'm like,
Wow.
This is across my legs. And she's like, no, there's an animal spirit. Who is it? And I said, oh, it's probably India. And she goes, yeah, it's India. So
does she see spirits?
Or she senses the energy. She sees things differently than we do. She's awesome.
So can we learn to do that?
We can. She said we do, because I said, I want to see how you see. She's like, you do. You just have to basically believe.
Oh, we've got so much to do, Julie.
I know. So much light to make, Kate.
And I know that Sally watches us sometimes. So.
Oh, yes.
You saw Sally.
I saw Sally Heidke. Highly, yes, the wonderful, wonderful, intuitive and life changer coach person. Yeah. No, she lives not that far from me. So we met a place half hour from me. In person.
Oh my God. I've literally, apart from people that I swim with, I've seen one friend, and that's been since 26th of December. I saw her on Monday.
Oh,
in person.
yes.
That's lovely.
Well, and here's the other thing. I saw Kellyanne.
Hello, Sally.
Yes. I saw Kelly.
Oh, hello, Kellyanne. You'll have to send her a copy of this then.
Yeah. I saw her on Saturday for the first time as well. And that, I mean, it's so maybe what we have to do is we have to just somehow plan annual gatherings somewhere, because to be able to be in the space with somebody that doesn't look at you like a nut job because you're intuitive and you talk with animals or spirit guides or angels or whatever. And just then, and like even Sally and I were talking about how like her method is continuing to evolve, which is just fascinating to me. And then we talked about what I haven't been doing but will be doing once I get settled and all that. But even just to talk about the business of intuitiveness and how we're, you know, and her fair that she went to, and just to have these conversations. And it, yeah, well, you know, this angel showed up or this, and it's not anything, just part of the conversation. It's so refreshing to do it in 3D and while you're eating chicken enchiladas. It's lovely.
Chicken?
Yeah, I did have chicken yesterday because
How can you call yourself a vegetarian? Vegetarian, sorry, Julie. Vegetarian turning vegan, eating chicken enchiladas.
You see how hard I'm laughing because my computer's probably shaking. I know. Okay, so here's so I have this thing about Mexican food. I love Mexican food. It is my favorite.
Yeah.
I know, but hold on. Let me just say this, because don't let me say this, Kate. So I judge a Mexican restaurant by its chicken taco. It's just been my thing my whole entire life. So the vegan thing is like a couple years in, so recently. So my whole life is based on a chicken taco. So we go to this place, they're having chicken tacos, but the woman's like, no, the chicken enchiladas are really good. So I'm like, I felt drawn to it. I ate it. They were delicious. Fabulous place. Cannot recommend. I'm not even going to remember the name. Skipper something in Lance, Michigan. Chicken enchiladas, people. Telling you. I know. I'm a complex person, Kate.
I'm sure you are. I have no issue. I eat chicken. I don't know, everyone just assumes because I've got a lip ring that I'm a vegetarian. I'm not. But it was the fact that you called yourself vegetarian.
I try to be.
Vegan.
I try to be.
But somewhere in between.
I can't. Yep.
Yeah, but you do know that chicken is not vegetarian. Never mind vegan.
No, I know that. And talk about eggs. Like, I love eggs. Give me eggs. Like, I'm going to make eggs before we have our next little session. Oh, yeah. No, I know. So we try
I'm
to.
not judging you about, because as I say, I eat meat. I'm merely pointing out that you labeled yourself as a vegetarian.
And yet I don't
And
fulfill
yet you eat
it
chicken.
completely. I don't take that norm and adhere to it.
You refuse to be labeled. What was it that
your norm and shove it?
I think, what was it that my friend calls Gary a pescatarian, which is actually the fish eating. But how did she do this? It must have been written as in pesky, which is a word meaning irritating. Is it like irritating? Pescatarian.
Yeah.
She must have been how she wrote it or something. Is he a pescatarian?
Okay. Wait, hold on. All right, so that was a great conversation around normalcy, judgmentalism, lots of different things in this week's version of Making Light. I'm Julie Heert.
And I'm Kate Foggo.
And we will see you next time. And we may look like we're wearing the exact same clothes because we probably are. See you then.